Have you ever had that really strange experience, maybe being jolted awake by this intense buzzing almost, a vibration inside you, and then suddenly you find yourself sort of floating, looking down at your own body, still asleep in bed?
That's a classic description, often quite
Yeah.
shocking when it first happens spontaneously.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's often the first doorway, isn't it, into what we're exploring today, astral projection or OBEs, out-of-body experiences. Our main source material actually kicks off with the author's own story. Happened when they were 17,
Right?
studying late apparently, and boom, this deep, rippling vibration hits them. Felt like their bones were humming. Next thing they know, weightless, near the ceiling fan, watching themselves slumped over their desk.
And, that kind of powerful personal experience, it really demands a closer look, doesn't it?
Definitely.
So for this deep dive, we're aiming to blend things. We've got history, centuries of these accounts, plus the modern neuroscience and the practical techniques people actually use. The mission, really, is to cut through the sort of pop culture stuff, the hype, and find the core knowledge. What makes this understandable? What are those aha moments, even if you're skeptical?
Right. Let's start right there then.
Yeah.
What exactly are we talking about? If something leaves the body, what is it? What is astral projection?
Okay, so the definition we're working with is this. It's the deliberate, conscious separation of your subtle, non-physical self. People call it the astral body. Energy body, spirit, lots of names. Separation from your physical body. And what's really fascinating is just how universal this seems to be. Different cultures, different times.
Yeah.
Soul flight, spirit walker, OBE. The language changes, but the core mechanics described, they're remarkably similar across the board.
So this astral body is the vehicle then. The sources describe it as like lighter, nested inside the physical one, almost like an echo. That's just a metaphor, or?
Well, it seems to be more than just a metaphor,
Yeah.
judging by these accounts. Think of your physical body like heavy armor,
Right.
dense. Inside that, there's this more refined, less restricted vehicle, the astral body. Now, yeah, it often mirrors your physical shape at first. That's probably self-image shaping it.
Ah, okay.
But it's described as malleable. Yogic traditions, for instance, talk about projecting as just a point of light, pure consciousness. So the form isn't maybe the most critical part. It's the stability of your awareness outside the body.
Now, how does that separation, the decoupling, how does that actually happen? You mentioned the vibrations earlier.
Right. So most successful conscious exits seem to follow a pattern. 3 phases, generally.
Okay.
First, really deep physical relaxation. Body's almost asleep, but the mind stays awake, watchful. That's the hypnagogic state.
Right, that edge of sleep feeling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Second phase, those vibrations start. That buzzing, maybe a loud internal hum, sometimes like a rushing wind, very distinct. And third, the actual separation, the liftoff or rollout. Now, it's really crucial to understand those vibrations. They aren't, your bed shaking or something wrong with your ears. The interpretation is that it's the sound of your awareness shifting frequency, tuning into a different operational level, basically, needed to function outside the physical.
And that's where people often get stuck.
Precisely. Many beginners panic right there. The intensity feels alarming, maybe dangerous. But that panic, it acts like an emergency brake, a jolt that snaps your consciousness right back into the physical body. Staying calm is key.
Okay, that makes sense biologically. Panic means return to safety. But let's push on that a bit. If it's so tied to sensory stuff, intense vibrations or deep relaxation, how do we know it's not just the brain creating a really vivid hallucination?
Ah, yes. That's the absolute core tension, especially for modern research. And science does have evidence that points towards the brain.
Like what?
Well, researchers have been able to induce OBE-like feelings floating, seeing the room from above, by electrically stimulating a specific brain area, the temporal-parietal junction, the TPJ. That spot is like a hub for integrating where your body is, what you're seeing, feeling. So stimulating it could theoretically cause a glitch, make you feel like you're floating outside yourself.
Yeah.
Suggests it's just brain wiring, misfiring.
Well, okay, that explains the feeling of floating. But then you hit this contradiction, right? The one that sources keep bringing up. What about veridical perceptions? Seeing things you couldn't possibly see.
Exactly. That's the crux of it. How do you square the TPJ stimulation data with credible reports of people accurately seeing things during an OBE that they couldn't have known otherwise?
Like the classic example.
The cardiac arrest patient, yeah. Describes a specific new surgical tool on a high shelf in the operating room. Saw it from the ceiling perspective, and the staff confirmed, yep, it was there, brand new, couldn't see it from the table.
Oh.
That kind of verifiable external detail really challenges the "it's only a hallucination" idea. So for someone exploring this seriously, that's the paradox.
Yeah.
The brain can mimic it, yes, but that doesn't fully explain seeing real things accurately from outside the body.
Fascinating tension there. But okay, beyond the science, there's just fear. Decades of spooky movies have made this topic seem terrifying for lots of people.
Absolutely. Fear is probably the biggest roadblock for beginners.
So let's tackle those big myths head on. The ones that keep people, glued to their mattresses.
Good idea. Let's clear the air.
Myth number 1,
Mm,
the silver cord. People worry it can snap and you'll be lost, stranded out there.
right. That's a persistent one. But the reality check, it's pure fiction based on all credible accounts. There's just no verified case of a healthy person getting permanently stuck outside their body.
Okay.
The silver cord, that sort of luminous link people sometimes perceive, is described as infinitely elastic. It's like an energetic tether.
Hmm.
And it seems to have built-in safety features. Strong emotion, fear, a loud noise.
Hmm.
It snaps you back automatically. It retracts.
So it's more like an automatic return ticket.
Exactly. An inherent safety mechanism.
Okay, second fear, maybe even bigger. Possession. Or that doing this could make you go insane.
Yeah, that's a heavy one. But here's a critical distinction we need to make. The overwhelming majority of people who report OBEs are psychologically healthy. Many actually report feeling better, more emotionally stable afterwards. The fear of possession often comes from misunderstanding what the astral plane is supposed to be like. The consistent description, it acts like a mirror.
A mirror.
Yeah, your inner state, your emotional frequency, your vibration, that's what determines what you encounter or attract.
But wait, couldn't that just be self-fulfilling? If I'm scared of seeing scary thought forms or whatever I launch, I feel fear, and my own mind just creates a scary experience, no actual external thing involved.
That's a really sharp point, and it gets right to it. Yes, the idea is that lower level, maybe unsettling thought forms might exist, but the emphasis in reliable sources is that your own intent and calmness are the shield.
How so?
If a beginner launches with a calm, focused intent, maybe visualizing protective white light, a common technique, they're simply operating at a higher frequency, if you will,
Yeah.
than that low-level static they might be worried about.
Ah.
So the conclusion tends to be, the only thing that really possesses a beginner is their own uncontrolled fear and panic. Get that under control, and the risk dissolves.
Okay. Third big point of confusion. How do you tell the difference? Is this an OBE or just a really, really vivid lucid dream?
Great question. Because lucid dreams can feel incredibly real,
Right.
but there are key differences reported. Lucid dreams, even hyper-realistic ones, tend to have a shifting quality. The story changes, the environment morphs based on your thoughts or expectations, dreamlike, fundamentally unstable.
Okay.
OBEs, on the other hand, are consistently described as having this remarkable stability of consciousness
All right.
and the sensory detail, often reported as sharper, clearer, more real than waking life.
Sharper than waking life.
That's the claim. And crucially, the environment tends to be stable and correspond to physical reality in verifiable ways.
Like the example you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. Like the person projecting to their brother's place 3 states away
Oh.
and noticing a specific new cobalt blue vase on the coffee table. They call later, ask about it. Yeah, just bought it yesterday.
Wow. You can check the facts.
Right. That ability to verify external details that stay fixed, regardless of what you're thinking about them, that fixed objective quality that's very different from a typical dreamscape, that coherence is often seen as the traveler's proof.
Excellent distinction. Okay, let's pivot to the practical side. If trying too hard, using willpower, just creates tension and stops it, what are the reliable ways to actually achieve liftoff?
Well, the foundation, as we said, is that deep relaxation, getting the body into that hypnagogic state, alpha-theta brainwaves while the mind stays alert. That's step one. But once you're there, you need a way to bridge the gap, to translate the idea of leaving into something kinesthetic almost, but without moving your physical muscles.
Right. So, technique number 1, the rope method. How does that work?
It's beautifully simple. Conceptually, you're lying still, deeply relaxed, and you visualize an invisible rope hanging down from the ceiling right above you.
Okay.
Then purely in your mind, you imagine reaching up, grasping that rope, and pulling yourself up, hand over hand, climbing out of your body. The key is no physical movement. Just the strong, focused, imagined action. That imagined motion seems to engage the subtle body, prompting the separation.
What happens if, say, you're doing the rope method, really focusing, and suddenly your foot twitches? Or you get a maddening itch on your nose? Does that break the whole
Ah, yes, the physical distractions, very common hurdle. That twitch often means the body's resisting that final layer of deep relaxation.
Right.
The trick is, acknowledge the twitch, the itch, but don't react physically. If you scratch the itch, you've just jolted yourself back towards normal waking awareness. You reset the process.
So just observe it.
Observe it dispassionately and immediately return your focus to the rope, to the upward pulling sensation. Minimize the reaction, maintain the mental focus. That's the discipline.
Okay. And if climbing isn't your thing, what about moving sideways? Is there an alternative?
Absolutely. That's the rollout technique.
Roll out.
Yeah. Instead of pulling up, you focus on the intention to just gently roll over to the side as if you were turning over in bed.
Okay.
You let the astral self sort of peel away, decouple sideways like a shadow lifting off the mattress. It can feel very natural because rolling over is such a deeply ingrained physical habit.
Yeah.
Less mental resistance sometimes.
Interesting. Okay, now timing. This part really caught my eye in the sources. Why is it that the window between, say, 4 and 6 hours after you first fall asleep is supposedly the prime time for beginners, the surfer's wave, as you put it?
It's all about the synergy of different states, really.
How so?
Well, after about 4 to 6 hours of sleep, you've typically had enough deep, slow wave sleep. That's delta. Your body is profoundly relaxed, probably experiencing sleep paralysis, which is natural.
Right, totally immobile.
Exactly. But crucially, at that point in the night, your sleep cycles start featuring longer and more frequent periods of REM sleep, rapid eye movement.
And REM is closer to being awake.
The brain activity during REM is much closer to waking consciousness, yes. Very active, lots of dreaming. So you've got this ideal combination, a body that's deeply asleep and paralyzed, and a mind that's naturally moving towards more active, aware states.
Ah, so it's like a shorter runway for takeoff.
That's a perfect analogy. The conditions are just optimally aligned for a conscious exit. Less distance to cover between deep sleep and focused awareness outside the body.
We've covered the how, deep relaxation, techniques like the rope or rollout, timing it right. But now the big question, why? Why go through all this? What's the real payoff beyond just a weird experience?
That's the core, isn't it? The why. And the deepest reward, according to consistent reports, is existential. It's profound. When you genuinely stand outside your physical body, look back at it. It provides this fundamental experiential confirmation that you are not just that body. You inhabit it, but you aren't limited to it.
That must change things.
It reframes mortality itself. There's that quote from the elderly monk in one of the sources. Something like, when you know you are more than flesh, fear takes early retirement.
Wow.
Suddenly, the fear of death diminishes, maybe significantly. And if that fear reduces, think about how it ripples out. The stress over a deadline, anxiety about a conflict, it all seems smaller, less ultimate. The stakes of daily life just shift. That deep knowing seems to be the real treasure.
And beyond that existential shift, there are therapeutic applications mentioned. Creative ones, too.
Oh, absolutely. Think about emotional healing. AP offers a unique space for what you might call emotional alchemy.
Meaning?
You can revisit difficult memories, maybe traumatic scenes, but from a detached, higher vantage point.
Yeah.
Outside the body, the usual fight or flight response isn't triggered in the same way.
Like the veteran example.
Exactly. The combat veteran who intentionally projected back to the scene of an ambush. By observing it, not as a terrified soldier in it, but as a calm observer floating above, they were able to process the trapped emotional energy, easing chronic pain and PTSD symptoms. It's powerful.
And creatively, a brainstorming space with no limits.
Precisely. Total freedom. We read about the game designer struggling with a core mechanic, how to make conflict resolution non-violent in their game.
Yeah.
During an OBE, they visited this astral city made of translucent shifting cubes that reconfigured based on thought alone. That experience, that sense of fluid structure, gave them the breakthrough insight they needed. The lack of physical constraints breeds radical new ideas.
It's not just about the trip out, though, is it? The source is stress integration, bringing it back.
Critically important. The real measure isn't just having the experience, it's what you learn and how you apply it back here in physical life.
So if you experience, say, a feeling of universal connection out there,
then the challenge is to translate that. How do you treat the annoying colleague or the stranger on the bus with a bit more of that patience or unconditional positive regard you felt? The astral insights should fuel tangible, this world growth. That's the goal.
Okay, so summing up this deep dive, astral projection, OBEs. It seems to be presented as a natural human capacity, trainable, not some weird fringe thing fundamentally.
Right. Rooted in consciousness itself.
It clearly takes discipline, patience, especially with those vibrations, and consistent practice with techniques. But the potential payoff isn't just novelty. It's deep self-knowledge that can really reshape your relationship with fear, with creativity, maybe with life itself.
Well said. And maybe a final thought to leave listeners with.
Yeah.
If this whole practice is essentially the art of realizing consciousness isn't confined by flesh, and if your physical body has all these amazing automatic systems to keep you safe and bring you back,
Yeah.
what if you just experimented? What small fear, a worry, a limiting belief you hold, maybe an old hurt, what if you consciously chose to just let go of it tonight? Just for a bit. To deliberately surrender that little piece of control, simply to see where the freer, unencumbered part of you might naturally drift. What might you discover?
To get more details about the power of astral projection, the secrets of out-of-body exploration, click the below link to get the book. Subscribe us to get more content like this.